Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar. A little bit of a serious style video today. Now, this is no laughing matter, ladies and gentlemen, but today we're going to look into things like being a targeted individual and whether this whole thing is real. Now, I've been, studying on this for about 2-3 weeks now. Started sending messages to a lot of people trying to get in touch. Unfortunately, I was not successful with people who were claiming to be targeted individuals out there. I really wanted to know a story of people who were being hit by this, but unfortunately nobody wanted to come forward, or I guess nobody really read the messages or any form of attempt of contacting them, which I can understand. I'm kind of terrible at that too. But looking into this, I wanted to cover this because these people were claiming to be targeted by the United States government, or in this case it could be any government out there, but specifically it was just the US government. And they claimed things like seeing people who were following them all the time around where they went, very, very, very specific vehicles that were always parked outside their homes, and at some points experiencing things like chronic pain because of government-induced torture devices that were being sent to their home. Now, I want to cover this because, unfortunately, this is half true. And this is something that I want to cover because we live in a day and age where this kind of stuff can be perpetrated, can be brought forward and given some legitimacy to it. Now, I went on to a lot of these 4chan threads out there, just in general, to look at where the start of this targeted paranormal community was, or this targeted community. I'm saying paranormal because I saw it on the X board, and immediately a lot of 4chaners just threw the fact out that, that's schizophrenia. Leave it to 4chan to be that blunt uncle out there, right? But moving on forward, looking into everything around this, I recalled back to our deep web browsing series when I looked at a lot of things reminiscent of targeted individuals, their specific websites. And I went back onto them and noticed that there was a big community of these people out there, and they stick close very well. Like they are always around each other. They have Facebook gatherings, all whatever you want to call it. And it's a community of people who genuinely believe they're being targeted by the government and they're being hit with devices. Now, I looked into a lot of these devices, and one of the most prominent ones that I've ever seen is V2K, which is voice to skull. Now, voice to skull we've looked at before, and basically this is the ability for the government to send specific thoughts into one's head, voices into your skull. So effectively what we call schizophrenia, a lot of these people will sit there and say that's just another fancy term for the government torturing an individual out there. See, all of it just leads to the idea of being targeted or gang-stalked in this instance. And I'll be the first one to admit it, they have this form of being half-right, and I've been saying half-right the entire time. Ladies and gentlemen, the big key thing that I wanted to really look at with this targeted individual stuff was surveillance. We live in a day and age where everything you type, everything you post is archived, cataloged, and analyzed by a third party or your own government. And it's incredibly easy to do. Things like machine learning, artificial intelligence does the brunt of the work for us, cataloging every post that we do and filtering it out into specific blocks. These blocks then create profiles of every individual out there, and with this profile, we basically get viewed as individuals of certain danger, individuals that are normal, so on and so forth. It's a way to individually tag out each person, a way to put people into an array or specific arrays and figure out which one is necessarily an evil or good or bad or whatever you want to call it. It's a way to filter out individuals into brackets, so to say. And this is one thing that I don't think needs to really be a conspiracy. It's already proven. Things like the PRISM project, the PRISM tool that the United States government had, where they backdoored a lot of big data services, operating systems out there to spy on individuals. Governments like China are very, 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 very well known for actually targeting their users, whether blocking them from the internet and then also analyzing their data to see if nobody is against the current party dynamic. And you could look at every major first world country and notice that there is an aspect of surveillance to it. You think the Japanese aren't spying on their civilians? You think the Russians aren't spying on their civilians? Everyone spies on their civilians. The Five Eyes Alliance, which I'm a part of, being Canadian, actually is a country that shares a lot of this data together. If you think any of the countries in the Five Eyes Alliance aren't spying on their citizens, I think you're incredibly wrong. And surveillance is always going to be a thing. Ever since big terrorist events in the world, surveillance has to have become that big giant thing. It used to be a push point, but nowadays it's almost shifted into the private enterprise doing it on us. Look at things like Amazon Alexa or the Google Assistant or, iPhones or Apple Siri. These virtual assistants, these voice assistants out there are constantly saving our voice data, uploading it to a server and processing a request. And I was kind of okay with that until I looked very deep into things like Amazon's Alexa devices. Did you remember the point where people had actually spoken to it and they were able to get voice data from other customers onto their Alexa devices or down to theirs? Ladies and gentlemen, if this data is being stored somewhere on a server, that is probably the definition of surveillance out there. Are they using it simply to make their software better, or are they using it to push us better ads or analyze each individual to a more intense degree of scrutiny? See, surveillance exists whether you want to believe it or not. And the things you post, the things you talk about ultimately put you into a category of an individual. And some of these categories you definitely don't want to be a part of. If you look up the word nuclear weapon way too much, or if you look up things like how to make a nuclear weapon without having an intention to make one, congratulations, you've already signed a death warrant. If you keep doing that, I guarantee you outside your house there's going to be a white van. And then you can truly say that you're a targeted individual. See, it's that reason why I say a lot of this stuff is a half-truth. These people have some claim of legitimacy to them. With surveillance comes targeting. And that's just unfortunately the world we live in. Now, when I was looking into the whole targeted individual community, a lot of the people who say that there's a big amount of chronic pains, a lot of these symptoms or a lot of these tools they like to point out can very easily be correlated and put into parallel with common mental illnesses that we have already discovered in the world. It's very easy to say that these aren't mental illnesses and they're government tools, but you have to sort of think outside the box and say, who should really be a targeted individual? People like Edward Snowden, who basically detailed what the PRISM Project really was, will always be a targeted individual for the rest of his life. The moment the United States government has the option to off him or arrest him, they will take that option to the end of the days. The only reason that man is still walking the earth is because he's sitting all the way out in Russia with the protection of Russian federal services, which I don't know is completely proven, but I'm pretty sure that's exactly how it is. That has to be how it is if he's going to survive against America. Individuals like Bin Laden or El Chapo or a lot of these criminal figures out there that directly hurt the United States, if these tools were to exist like voice to skull or the ability to pinpoint wherever you are and kill you or put immense chronic pain onto an individual, would have been used against these individuals from the start. I mean, if these weapons exist, should they not be targeting the people out there that are really in the public limelight? People who are known terrorists, people who are known terror financiers, people who are known criminals out there, people who have an actual agenda against the United States government in a very public sense should be targeted first and foremost by targeted individuals, services out there. It's very, very easy to say that people out there, who simply search up something wrong once in a while claim to be targeted is a little bit too out there for me. I'm not saying that you're not important, but being a targeted individual that looked up things like 9/11 conspiracies one too many times, we all have, all right? We've all looked into it. All right, we've all done the most we can. You might run a website that talks about chemtrails every once or so often, but that's not enough to make you targeted. Let me tell you something real quick. Targeting an individual requires a sum of money, requires a certain body to be put on somebody else. There are not enough resources to go around to target every single individual out there. So no, because you run a website that simply speaks the truth, or you've posted something a little edgy once in a while, they're not going to target you like crazy. You have to do something pretty illicit, pretty against the US government or any government of that sort that has the ability to spy and track you for them to actually put the efforts on spying and tracking on you. But what you are true on is that every time you post something, you are under the watchful surveillance eye of a lot of these services that exist out there. Things like the NSA, things like CIA, things like CSIS in Canada. These people will track you the moment you start doing some really shady shit. But that's all they're going to do. They're going to track what your online patterns are. Until and unless you start posing a physical threat to other people or the government or security, they're going to start targeting you at that point, ladies and gentlemen. Look, I've been on the deep web for like 2 years. A lot of people say touching the deep web once is enough to get you targeted. I've never seen a white van outside my house, okay? There's only one douchebag with a Civic that revs his car really fast. And if the government's sending somebody like that to target me, I think Canada as a whole needs to go down at this point, all right? I'm just saying, our government has truly failed my expectations. Ladies and gentlemen, if you feel that you're a targeted individual, ask yourselves the basic questions. Am I important enough for the government to target me? me? Have I done something fucked up enough for the government to truly target me? Are these voices in my head really a government superweapon? Or are they just actual schizophrenia? And should I get help? Because that's really kind of the big reason why I want to make this video in the first place. The people that are involved in doing this, I'm going to say that a good, tiny percentage of them may actually be targeted by their governments. But a good percent of them just need to seek some help. So yes, if you believe that the government is targeting every single thing that you do, please seek some help. Get the help that you need, because if you're feeling things like chronic pain, if you're feeling things like voice-to-skull phenomenons that have not been proven at all yet, that don't have a basis to exist, they haven't been given any form of legitimacy, you need to seek some medical attention. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. Like I said, I care about a lot of people out there, but the more and more I look at in the targeted individuals community, the more and more I realize that when you huddle these people up together and they start literally saying, you know what, you're right, it's very similar to a safe space, okay? You just need to get the truth at some point, all right? Trust me, the government is not this all-seeing, knowing God out there. They're literally just a group of people running the country. And some of them, yes, they like to survey on us. They like to combat against certain key negative elements of society. Are you that negative? Ask yourself that, ladies and gentlemen. But if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it. I am